Louder? Louder, louder. Is that good enough? There we go. I would like, before I begin, to say this is just informal conversation and ask that the elder in this auditorium this evening give me permission to speak, if I may have that, please. It seems like you're the one. Thank you. Welcome once again to another of Nahasi on Earth, Marcus Garvey African Scholar Lecture Series. Today we are have the pleasure to have one of our brothers and renowned scholars in the whole effort of bringing African history back into world history, and primarily one of our elders who have worked diligently and persistently over the years to reaffirm Africans' presence in the ability to produce civilization. John Jackson has said that culture is one where a person learns a behavior and duplicate it consistently. But he said a civilization is one when it produces written text by its scholars and scientists. Dr. Ben has been one who have been about the business, the work, to reaffirm to African people and to the people of the world that African people 6, 8, 10, 12, 17,000 years ago had scientists and scholars, and those individuals and that culture has been the hallmark of human civilization until today. I like to say that I'm glad to see so many Africans out today, and I know Dr. Ben is glad to be received by Philadelphia so warmly. The Nahasi on Earth Lecture Series is a series put together to bring about information to reaffirm Africans' identity. The lecture series was developed by the Sophie Williams Committee, which is a committee of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and Africans Community League. We were established in 1916 to do just what we are doing today, and that is to reaffirm Africans' place in the world after 500 years, 2,300 years of brutal annihilation in the world history picture. I will not elaborate much longer because this time is for our elder, Dr. Ben, to present to us this evening in one of his many various topics, and that is African origins of the world's major Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And I'd like Philadelphia to give him the spirited welcome that he's entitled to. And after the lecture, we will have questions. And after the questions, I would like people to hold up for a few minutes and let us get some announcements and some networking going on, if it's possible. So with no more further discussion, our historian and elder statesman, Dr. Yosef Ben Jochannan.
I would like to thank you for that resounding welcome, and to thank the young ladies and young men who made it possible for my coming here after quite a while to address you. When people speak of religion, but before I go into that, let me equally pay tribute to the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. Brother Garvey, although doing his utmost to bring to our people the cognizance of the African heritage and to ask as many as would go and return back home, kept in mind the need for spirituality. However, he was unable to deal with it in terms of an African base. Just he was unable to have people accept the term African in its entirety. When you think of the name of the organization, it will tell you the struggle the men had in Jamaica, in the Caribbean. He started an organization by the name of African Communities League. But when he came to the United States, we were not ready for the word African, though we were allegedly ready to go home. We accept ourselves being Negro, but the continent being Africa. Quite a contradiction. Mr. Garvey made the compromise because it was more important to have the organization than equivocate over the name. Of course, up to shortly before his death in London, when I visited him, like many of us, he came to lecture at Africa House. And myself, a youngster, I think I was the youngest in that house that day. There were men like Krumah, Azikwe, Awolo, Nyomboro, and names like that, most of whom are now dead. When he stated that that was one of the drawbacks he had, the fact that he could not have his organization named in its proper way as the people of the organization. And I need to say, another thing that Mr. Garvey was ticklish about was the fact that he had to name an organization, his religion, in a similar manner as he had named others and give titles that were so similar as the European. But at the time, our people were not ready to have other names other than that which Europeans used. I don't think we've changed much since that time. I think in some contexts we've gotten worse. So I'm going to speak this evening in terms of these three different religious groups. One of the problems is that we have gone from the religious basis of religion. Not even the theosophical basis of religion we maintain. Most of us treat religion as if it's a definite thing. When we say Adam and Eve, we think that there was a fellow named Adam and there was a woman named Eve. Literally. We don't understand that it's a theory of a group of Hebrews writers who were not there with Adam and Eve. I know you're going to question me, but then if Adam is the first man, nobody's there with Adam. If Eve is the first woman and the second person, it's only two of them. There's no recorder. Nobody there is taking down the record. There is no history or record showing that either of these people had a language they could read and write. Obviously, they must have started Gu Ga Ba. Or the child, she might have said Adam, and he must have said Eve, and somebody might have said Steve, and who knows? And the conversation went on. But the truth of the matter people can't understand is there was no factual, historical Adam and Eve. And it's the hardest thing to get our people to understand. They do not understand either that God or the deity is a concept. Nobody been there and see a God doing anything. It is the belief of man. Nothing wrong with it. Go ahead and believe it. But what I'm interested in is that we understand the difference between belief and knowledge. I know that I'm standing here. I'm not going to argue the question with you. I know this. I don't believe I'm standing here. I know. I believe somebody is standing outside behind this wall named Jane with a red coat on. I believe so. I'm not going to bet on it. I won't bet a penny because I don't have the fact. I believe so. I believe that when I die, I'm going to resurrect. I'm not going to bet. I could bet you. I bet you $1 million now to $1. Because if I die, you're not going to collect before you. And if you die, I'm not going to collect. So if both of us die at the same time, I can't neither go collect. Because I haven't seen anyone die, get up and come back and say how it was on the other side. That's your belief. You may die and find out that God is a woman from Puerto Rico drinking green whiskey. Now you're in trouble. You're in a lot of trouble. Now, if we could only understand then that whatever you believe is just that, a belief. I hope you're correct, and I wish you good luck. You will know when you croak. That will not be a belief after then. If there is a hereafter, you will know. If there isn't a hereafter, you have wasted time. So, all right. So, if we could understand ourselves before I even get into the meat of the thing, we will not be in any trouble. It's appropriate that we should be in a place such as this because we've just left the hall out there, downstairs, and of course there's another hall upstairs. Much of the articles, or many of the articles, and many of the artifacts you have seen upstairs are based upon the concept of not religion, because the ancient Africans had no religion as such, but the theosophical concept of a deity or deities. Deities who were male and female. I think one of the unique thing about the ancient Africans along the Nile in particular, since that's what I'm going to deal with, is that they did not have the sickness of Western man and Arab man. The sickness of believing that only the male character can be a deity. They were not corrupted in the belief of the inferiority of the woman. They saw both parties being and accepted that wherever there was a god, there was equally a goddess. Consistent with their belief in the law of opposite, or equilibrium. In other words, for anything to be balanced, they believed that it had a central point, a point of balance, and there were the extremities of both sides of that point of balance, whether it's up or down, and if it was diagonal, it equally was balanced and the hypotenuse. The ancient Africans along the Nile, as a matter of fact, saw their spirituality being scientific, for they based it in the logic of mathematics. Not mathematics coming from religion, but to the contrary, the opposite. That what you call today religion, an organized body, an organization for the benefit of spirituality, and we don't even see it that way, The ancient Africans did not use that term. It is strictly European and Asian and certain groups of Asians who have carried their concept, their theosophical concept, into organized religion. As organized religion came in, there came the corruption to spirituality. Because people started to get paid for doing the work of spirituality, and therefore were more interested in projecting the jobs than speaking about the deity. Let us take the background for what I'm speaking about, and let us take a timeline in order for you to follow me and understand what I'm speaking about. Based upon available records to us, and since I have no contact with outer space, with angels or gods or goddesses, and I have no Ouija board that I deal with, or tarot cards or tea leaves or anything like that. Believe me, I don't deal with anything like that. I'm lost when it comes to anything like that. I must deal with documents of the past. My records, and when I speak to you, it is because I have gone to Egypt, to Israel, to India, to you name it, wherever they got it. And I've gone to see for myself. Because going into libraries and museums are not enough for me. I am an inquisitive person. I go, and when that's not enough, I start digging. I get pick and shovel and get others with me to dig and find that which may have been buried over thousands of years. To find the truth. To me, there is no truth that's permanent. Truth today may be changed tomorrow. What is right today may be proven wrong tomorrow. Therefore, anything today, I am open for change tomorrow. In such, then, let us take the oldest to the youngest in terms of documentation of what I've been speaking about. Basically, I will be speaking about the religiosity or the form of religiosity that came down the Nile, not gone up the Nile. When I speak of the Nile, I'm speaking from Uganda in terms of the White Nile, Egypt in terms of the Blue Nile. The spirituality that I'm going to speak about comes from the people from what would be today northeast Zaire, ancient Manicongo. I am dealing with the smallest people on record, the Twa and the Hutu, which Europeans call Pygmy. Along with those people, those who migrated from the area, Grimaldi that went to the most southern tip today, which was called at one time Monomotapa, and that's the name I still call it in spite of who want to call it other names today. Because if it was good enough, the ancient Africans in terms of this, the name of their country, Monomotapa, I still call it Monomotapa, in spite of the fact that the Portuguese said that the Monomotapa was a bad man. Therefore, some Africans feel that they must change the name to suit and to satisfy the modern ones. I still call it Monomotapa. I will deal with the Grimaldi as well as the people called Khoi and Kalahari. I reject the name Bushman and Hottentot. Coming from the center of Africa again, down north, down the Nile, the same set of people I will call as they have called themselves Sebenetus when they are in Egypt. Those are the people that give us the oldest documentation of theosophy anywhere in the entire world. You can bring from me anything you want, theory. And Babylonia, Sumner, and any one of them. I am from Missouri when it comes to this. Show me some evidence. Show me any artifacts from Babylonia or Sumner that is more ancient than these people, and I will change my talk and apologize to everyone from now on that I was in error. Until such time, all the universities of the world, black, white, pink, green, technicolor, rainbow, could go to hell in terms of documentation. Therefore, until you bring a book of theosophy older than the book of the coming forth by day and by night, and present it to me so I can look into it, then it means that the Africans along the Nile had and have the oldest collection of spiritual works, otherwise called a Bible. The word Bible is a collection of spiritual writings. And that's all it means. It don't say a collection of facts, a collection of truth, nothing. It says a collection of spiritual writings. It could be lies, it could be the fact, it could be anything. A collection of spiritual writings. That's all it means. Thus it means that if you went to the bathroom and you needed a piece of paper, you didn't have any other paper, use the Bible. That's all it is, a collection of writings. Buy another one. Now, that's all. You people scared to touch it. People scared for it to fall down on the ground. So what? If it falls, so take it up and use it again. Any other book falls, you're not worried about it. You make it. You enslave yourself. You imprison yourself with these nonsensical things. That's the first one. We can use this and find that we can put this to about 4,200 or 4,100 before the Common Era, which will put us at the first dynasty, not the first year, make sure, of Egypt or any other nation along the Nile. For it is in 4100 BC or BCE, we note that there are already revisions in this book. Why 4100? Because that is the date that Manetho did not say 4100 BC because there was no Christ when he was alive, wrong, not Jesus Christ. But if you use the time that he gave from the first dynasty up to when he lived, the 30th dynasty, if you add up the pharaohs and the amount of years served, it will come to 4100 years before there's somebody called Jesus the Christ. If you use other writers, of course, other European writers, not other because he was Egyptian, they will differ from 3100 all the way to 5000 and add before the Common Era, such as Bogash, Budge, even Breasted here, and others, Mariette, Champollion de Piget, and all these other fellows who dabbled in Egyptology. The next closest to that in terms of age that is being used of the three religions that play a part in our thinking process would be that of the Hebrews, or Yehuda, or Judah, or Jehovah. Any way you want to call it is okay with me. I am not worried about semantics today. That would be about the best. This is the year 5000 and add of the Hebrew calendar. That would include from the time of the mythical Adam and Eve. And that we could tell you why we don't need to deal with that, because Adam and Eve are concepts that came out of the Hebrew Torah from the Hebrew Sanhedrin, that is the educational center of the Hebrews. And that did not open its doors until about 700 before the Common Era, attributed to an African called Moses, because you said that Moses was born in the city of Goshen in Egypt around the time believing Jochannan was on the throne at that time. Akhenaten had already died about 50 years before Moses was supposed to be born. So we don't even have to worry him about time, because that is the 18th dynasty. Yesterday in history, comparatively speaking. Because Abraham himself did not bring any theories to Judaism. The superstar of Judaism is Moses. He's the theoretician that is going to give most of the basic things. Forget about Genesis, because Genesis was the last book in the Hebrew Bible, though it's the first book listed. They had 4 books, and Rabbi Agrippa and Rabbi Hillel argued the point that how we are going to have an Exodus, we leave in some place and we didn't get here yet. So he added a book called Genesis, beginning. Okay. The second book in terms of this, in the timeline, would be Christianity, coming at approximately 1992 years ago, minus 4. Because the Christians forget to put the 4 years that Justinian dropped when he had the Ethiopian Etba to reform the calendar so that it would drop in the proper Jubilee year. They had to chop off 4 years. So sorry for you, instead of Jesus being 33, he's in fact 37. So, but I know that's going to mess up the Masonic brothers. You will not have 33 degrees anymore. You will have to add 4 more to make it 37. And now you'll have a lot of trouble with St. John's Day or any other such days. That will take care of that. Islam, the youngest of the 3, those 3. Christianity, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. Islam is the baby of the 3 in terms of years. You see, we talk a lot and we wishfully want things to be what we want it to be, and we make it that way. Because we seem to forget that Muhammad, M-O-H-A-M-E-T, not M-A-D, no M-E-D. Muhammad ibn Abdullah, the grandson of an Ethiopian woman, member of the Chorus people, a tribe as some people prefer to say. It was not until 622 of the Christian calendar, Christian year, that he challenged the religion in Mecca. Driven out of Mecca with his 3 companions, Haksat, Kubad ibn Rabad, otherwise called Bilal, Umar the Great, and Abu Bakr, they fled to the outside of the city of Medina, northwest of Mecca, where there at the oasis of Yathrib established the religion today called Islam. But that is the chronological order in which these religions or theosophical concept or way of life, you call it anything you want in semantics, it doesn't matter to me, as long as it means what we mean. Let us then look at the fundamental principle that started all of them. First of all, you must have people. The concept of people before you have religion. Religion, people are more important than God. Without people, you don't have God. Nobody to tell you there's a God. It's people that told everybody there's a God. You haven't met a God that told you there are people. All our concepts dealing with the deity come from a man or a woman. There was one time that women wrote. In Egypt, women also wrote. In Judaism and Christianity and Islam, women aren't in that position to be writing nothing. Sometimes up to now, in Islam, women can't preach. In most of Christianity, women can't preach. And definitely, in most of Judaism, women can't preach. We didn't have that problem along the Nile. There was the priest and the priestess. The Africans always know where he came from. He realized that he didn't come out of a man's rib cage, that he came out of a vagina, came down through the vagina, all the way back up in from a womb, down to a vagina, and of course, the placenta played a major role of his heaven. He didn't look up in the air for heaven. He knew where heaven was. He came out and he went back. Now, these are the realities. The reality I'm speaking about is the reality in which the Africans said that God Kunum made man on his potter's wheel out of clay. As a matter of fact, when you go to Egypt, you go to the temple of Kunum at a place called Esna in southern Egypt. It is in bad repair now, but since you're not going to see the Kunum drawing, you're going to see just 4 empty walls. I don't waste time to go there anymore. But I go to a place called Agilica Island. They now call it Philae Island. And there you will see the temple of Aset, or Isis. And at the Mamisi, the birth house, on the walls you will see God Kunum making man and woman on his potter's wheel out of clay, which was copied later by the Jews, except the potter's wheel. Jehovah is going to steal the whole thing and left out the potter's wheel. Not even a good thief. He forgot the wheel and kept only the clay and something. That's why his people are messing up all the time, because they missed the way they should have been made with the potter's wheel. Of course, God, Ptah, is the God in charge of making gods. Kunum made man with 2 spirits. See, when Jehovah, Jesus and Allah was taking over the daddy's work, poor fellows didn't write down the thing correctly, because they forgot that man has 2 spirits, 2 souls, according to the first teaching. The heart soul, which stays with the body, or the cat, the heart soul being the cat. That when the man died, it stood with his soul according to the ancient teaching. But his back, the spirit soul, the mind, intelligence, went on to the next world to pursue goddess Ma'at, justice, the African woman. Always justice, goodness, everything that it makes for a peaceful relation is symbolized by the goddess, the woman. That is right. I mean, it should be that. Some fellows don't understand that came from woman. They thought they come from man, but that's all right. That's why they still got the rumor going. I made a baby last night. When you made a baby last night? He passed a baby. Your scrotum don't have no babies. It got some sperm, and some of the sperms are sick. You all can't make, some of you can't make nothing. So I don't know what you're talking about. Babies are made in women only, not even homosexual male. They're trying, but they haven't been successful, even with the operation. Now let's get it straight. We need to get things very clear before we leave. Now, we see this. We got the history of it. The point is that I can carry you to Egypt and show you everything I'm talking about. You carry me to Jerusalem or any place in Israel, show me what you're talking about. Carry me to Mecca, except the mosque, show me what you're talking about. So I'm going to stick with what I got because I got the proof. You got the belief, I got the proof. Now, as a matter of fact, I don't have to go to Mecca or Jerusalem or Bethlehem. I could go back upstairs or downstairs and show you. Now, in this thing, we got to stop right here. When we stop at Abydos, a place called Abydos, Again, there is a big temple, and there are a number of people right here. I carried you and show you what I've been telling you. Here is goddess Aset, Isis, becoming pregnant by an immaculate conception. And you see the holy sperm being ejaculated into her by God Asaru, which you call Osiris. On the other wall, the opposite wall, you see her on the birth chair with the elongated, impregnated breast, giving birth to God, her virgin-born child, which is to be copied 4,000 years later by Mary, Joseph, Jehovah, and anybody else for Jesus. I mean, you went and see it. You saw it. You not only read about it, but you saw it in the stone wall. Dug up. Not only did you see that, you saw where the early Christian and the early Muslim tried to dig out the evidence but couldn't. You saw that in a number of temples. Besides the one at Abydos, you equally saw it in the temple of Hathor at Dendera, where they didn't take the chisel and try to destroy it. Here they took the soot because they couldn't reach it. And now the soot is falling off and the evidence is getting clearer and clearer every day. I don't know what people want. When we are taking our trips to Israel and Mecca, why don't we include the whole church, the whole synagogue, the whole mosque to Egypt, down the Nile, and to look at those places? When we are going to the Holy Land, why not go to the first Holy Land in history at Abydos? We can't, because I heard some young people today saying that they were not Africans, they were what, lost sheep, I think they call themselves, and that the reason they weren't is because Egyptians sold their people in slavery. They were Hebrew Israelites. Who sold their people in the first place? Had they known their history, they would have known that not a single Jew was under the rule of a single Egyptian in the first place. When the Hebrews came into Egypt, allegedly, according to the Torah, Egyptians were controlled, conquered by a group of people calling themselves Hyksos, or shepherd kings. It was the 13th dynasty when they showed up calling themselves Haripo or Haribu and other such names, the English version being Hebrew. Now you either know the historical data or you don't. I was not taught by my father, and I know from experience, if you don't know, shut up. And go and find out. Then come back and start talking about it. You can't tell him about you got faith, blind faith, and talk like a jackass. Blind faith doesn't give you no intelligence. Blind faith just means you're still stupid. Now let us go on. We have to deal with the fact that the concept that we are talking about today in the synagogue, that we will talk tomorrow in the church, that we talk Friday in the mosque, are nothing more than plagiarized, rehashed concepts. Let us see. You cannot, if you're Christian, you're a Jew, or you're Muslim, you cannot give me any moral dogma within your religious concept that goes back before Moses in terms of yours. Because you said that Moses gave to the world the concept of the 10 commandments. I don't have to bring in any evidence. I'm going to use Moses himself, as the proof to show that that can't be correct. Moses is charged with murder before he reaches Mount Sinai, where he is to receive the 10 commandments. The Pharaoh, whether it's Ramesses, most people say it's Ramesses, or whether it's Ramesses' father, Setai I, or whether it's Ramesses' son, Merinta. You see Merinta in the picture there, beating his enemy, killing his enemies. Regardless of either, one, the Pharaoh challenges Moses and going to kill him based upon the Hebrew Torah. And the law he's using, Moses committed murder. He killed one of the Pharaoh's soldiers. His brother Aaron is charged with stealing from the treasury. There's a law against stealing. They're not going to reach Mount Sinai until 40 years later before they're going to get the law. A law against stealing, a law against murder, and 10 such laws, but they're going to leave out 32 more such laws used in Egypt. Moses, when he's going to do this, is born there in Africa, in Egypt. He's the sole brother. He goes to school in Egypt. From age 7, when he gets his circumcision, as he enters the Grand Lodge, and that is based upon the Jewish teaching itself, not mine. Jewish writers wrote this down. And at age 7, since then all the boys who went to the school had to enter at age 7, he studied there for 40 years without going home. The several liberal arts, engineering, law, medicine, and so on. He studied there and became a priest. They said, the Torah said he was learned in the ways of an Egyptian priest. What other way you going to learn it? He's an Egyptian, he's never been anywhere else. Never been to school, he's learning Egyptian education. And the things that I stated is what a priest had to do. He's 85 years old already when he finds out that he's a Jewish. For 85 years of his life, he doesn't know he's Jewish. Certainly, he's raised by the king. The king's daughter find him, the princess, and the king is killing all of the little boys who aren't Hebrew, who aren't Egyptian. He looked like any other Egyptian that I know in the room here, and so the king doesn't ask his own daughter, how come you bring back a little girl, a little boy child? I mean, when did you get pregnant? Who made you pregnant? I mean, can you imagine the king ain't saying nothing about this? Somebody made his daughter pregnant, no marriage, no nothing, and the king doesn't say a thing about it. I mean, you got to use your head about this story. Your daughter come in the house with a baby. You gonna ask, well, how? You gonna turn Indian or something? How? Let's be rational about this now. Well, all this, we got a set of laws. Not only this, we got another set of laws. We got a set of laws that when a person dies, they must go to another woman, a woman with a goddess with a feather always in the center of her head, symbolically, Ethiopian feather, ostrich feather, called Ma'at, where people have to go and give the admonition that they have lived according to these 42 laws. There are millions of people died before Moses who have gone and given this admonition. Those 10 commandments plus 32 more already. There is a common behavior pattern, an obligation which has to be set by the people. The people are saying, I believe in the one and only God, Aten, A-T-E-N. There is no Moses yet. The man who they're following is a man called Amenhotep IV, who changed his name to Akhenaten. That should bring us to the 18th dynasty. There is no Moses yet. You could find this in the race section of the Book of Coming Forth by Day, by Night, otherwise called the Book of the Dead by Burch. And there in the Osirian drama, you will see all of the 42 laws. There is another set of laws and rules by the Pharaoh Amen Emot, I-A-M-E-N-E-M-E-O-P-E, the third, which Solomon's going to come later and plagiarize, steal and plagiarize, almost word for word. You could read the Songs of Solomon, compare them to the teachers of Amenhotep, and you see where that fellow stole the man's word. 1,000 years before Solomon, this man is to write these things. Now, what else? You can't talk about resurrection. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam speaks of resurrection. But let us go back to the temple of Setai at Abydos, or the temple of Goddess Hathor at Dendera, to look at the resurrection and the opposite form of Isis receiving the Immaculate Conception. Look at the opposite side, and you see Osiris in the resurrection, the state of the original resurrection, talking about the penis from a dead level to a perpendicular. The penis, when it was cut off by one of the 14 pieces, cut up by his brother Typhon, who had killed him the first time by hanging him, the second time by cutting up into 14 pieces, the one piece being lost because it had been eaten by the Nile catfish. His wife, the faithful wife, Isis, I'm using the Western term to make it easier for you, carrying the god of the dead to reconstruct it. That's Kepra. And reconstruct him, but had to resurrect the penis so it can impregnate Isis herself. And even resurrect it. Not only that, the tomb of Osiris that said move an entire wall. When he was resurrected from his tomb, Jesus only moved a stone. And yet we will argue each other down and fight over this story. These allegories. These are the fundamental principles upon which Judaism, Christianity, and Islam rests. Without them, there is no Judaism, there is no Christianity, and there is no Islam. And that's what we refuse to deal with. We refuse to see, like we said, in blind faith. I know there was something before, but this got to be better and different. Yet it was before. What are you talking? I know there's a hole there, but I'm going to play like it isn't there until I break the neck. And that's what we want to do. Yet, within all of these constructs, we said that truth, godliness and truth are the same things, we say. Then in the face of truth, make your godly change. No one said to you that you got to give it up. But wherever you deal with it, make the distinction between that which is belief and that which is reality. And we can't make the distinction between something real and something belief. Let's go back to other fundamental principles in what I'm speaking about in terms of our religiosity, or, I prefer, our spirituality. When the Africans along the Nile, for instance, one of the common names used by many of the pharaohs for a long period of time was son of the sun, SOS, like they say of our ship. And a pharaoh was known as the son of the sun. The SON of the S-U-N. Because Ra was the symbolic god symbolized by the sun. The ancient Africans alive long did not believe the sun was the god, the deity, but the sun was symbolic of the deity. What it meant? That if you want to know what the deity was like, it is like the sun. He was like the sun. They would say, just as the power of the sun, so plus is the deity. Ra, which was the god of the south, Amen, the god of the north. Amen, the people in the north that worship Amen, their leader was a man called Scorpion, a king. As I said before, in the south was a man called Nama or Mena. Sometimes he is also said to be named Aha. The reunification of Egypt, because Egypt was a state before it broke up into two, but the reunification of Tawi, the north and the south, the two lands, at a place called Memnefa, where the fight went on, the battle of the north against the south, or the south against the north, before the south defeated the north, Nama defeated Scorpion. It is then that Ra and Amen, again, another lie. Amen means so be it. Who said so? When did Amen become so be it? Amen was the god of the north. But when Nama defeated Scorpion, he took the two god concept, joined them in together, thus you had Amen-Ra, Amen-Ra, one. Later, Amen-Ra became Amun-Ra, A-M-U-N-Ra. And then Amun-Ra was used as the principal god above all other gods until the coming of Akhenaten in the 18th dynasty, who changed it to Aten. I must re-emphasize, there is no Allah and there is no Jesus yet used. Now all this is going on. Millions of people along the Nile and other parts of the world are worshiping this. After this, another aspect of Africanicity came about. A group of Africans carrying the name Tumul, T-U-M-U-L. You know them as Dravidians. During the time of Thutmose III and before then, leave the continent of Africa, crossed over into the continent of Asia, went on down, captured the nation called Chaldea, changed the name of it to Elam, calling the people Elamites, went on all the way down to a place called today India, took over the Indian River there, name it for General Ganges of Ethiopia, introduced the indigenous people to a religion and religious teachings under the concept of the worship of an African woman called Hathor, who is shown symbolically as a cow called the golden calf by the Jews later. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu priests, the Brahmins, they themselves give credit to the Tamils, these Africans, these black people in the southern part of India, yet the same people that use the religion of the people that carried it in there still make these people untouchables. But they're right, because we're always claiming everybody. And yet nobody wants us. It is important that we know, when we are going to say which one is right, wrong, or indifferent, we must know all of these facts. You cannot know just a Bible, you cannot know just a Torah, you cannot know just a Quran. You must know all the other works that went on to make those things, plus others. When you are going to make a decision with a fight between husband and wife and the children, you have to hear the husband, the wife, and the children. You can't hear either one and then make your decision. You can't read just the Quran and tell me it is the best. Just the Bible, tell me that is the best. Just the Torah, tell me that. Or even just the Book of the Dead. You must have read all of them. And sources that bring them about to make a proper analysis to reach to a proper conclusion. I don't care what the conclusion is, but I want that you have read all the facts available on all sides of the story in order to come to a conclusion. If this is being, and many people say, I don't like this religion, I attack. If this is attacking, I'm going to keep attacking. But if this is sent to ask you to read, to check all things before you make the decision, I think that then you are not dealing with blind faith. You're dealing with an intelligent conclusion. You see, we are such, and a convert is the hardest person to deal with, because the convert is disillusioned and leaving some place. Oh, and scared to be further disillusioned in a new place. Thus would see the errors that he or she have not overlooked at the last place will overlook now, because they're saying, damn, I just left this one and this here proved no better. I am sure that when you leave one religion to the next, you don't get anything. You don't get anything new. You're still in the same belief. See, if you go from Judaism to Christianity to Islam, God still ain't gonna give you a woman. God or goddess still ain't gonna do nothing for you, not give you a job. Sometimes I listen and somebody say, look, I went to the Lord last night and he gave me $5. I woke up and there were $5 on my living room. You leave the damn $5 at the tip living room and you put something on it one day and something move it off and there was the damn $5. Where they got a printing press in heaven, or where heaven is, if God, and you got such a contact, call him up. Call him up right now and let him talk to me. Let's stop driving with each other. We have to deal with the reality of life. Now, if in the concept of the deity, and we are talking about the faith, I have no problem with a person relying on certain faith, because I myself have faith. If you got a woman and you got to go 1,000 miles from her, you have to have faith. Otherwise your mind is in a lot of trouble. And that goes vice versa, of course. That's faith. If I cross the street from this side of the street to the next, based upon how you fellows are driving, you got to have faith. That is that I believe that nothing is going to happen to me given a certain condition with a certain sense of rationality. The rest got to be faith. Because if I'm dependent, when they come with me in an automobile and I'm flying all over the place, you know, I got faith when I jump in the airplane and strap myself in the electric chair. That's faith. I got faith that that cracker will fly that plane direct, that the captain and the co-captain, the pilot aren't going to argue about who's going to France and who's going to Germany at the same time. They got to agree that they're going to the same place. Now that's faith, because I ain't got no control over it. That's faith, blind faith. I got no choice. But if I got a choice and I got a 38 and say you're going to Cairo, both of you, that ain't no more faith. That's a gun. He going to Cairo. That, you see what I'm dealing with? One has to deal with the reality. So although we deal with the input of what goes into the thing, we also deal with the rationality we're talking about. The detail as to whether one eat or drink or don't eat pork or this, that's another thing that has got clear. The ancient Egyptian not only ate pork, particularly on December 25th, but they used medicine made of pork, a pork fat. I suggest that you take up a copy of the Ebers Papyrus and a number of other papyri and saw where the ancient Egyptians used fat, that melted fat, especially to make the capsules and to use for health measure. Again, if you don't want to eat pork, okay. But even Quran said what? Quran said, if you were hungry, couldn't get anything to eat, and it was going to threaten your life, and the only thing was there was piggy wiggy, put him down your stomach if it's even raw, and save your life. That's Quran. Not eating pork has nothing to do with God. It's a disciplinary thing. It's a disciplinary thing. Because Quran said your life is most important. But some of us, we go overboard with anything. A man come and see me. Now I never ate chops and things like that till I became a big man, because I'm born in a Hebrew family. But people see me eating and I got a nice chop on the table, they're going to tell me, what you eating? They ain't blind, I eating pork. And I paid for it. If you don't want me to eat pork, I will eat filet mignon. You pay for it, I eat it. So any day you don't want me to eat pork, come with me, buy my food. You don't want me to eat meat, come with me, buy my food. Then I eat it when you're not there. To talk about these extraneous things, which mean not. What is the basic fundamental principle of Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and what the Africans taught about? What the Africans taught about in the religiosity, and they make science a part of the religiosity, law, engineering. All of this were part of the teaching of the priests. It's the priests who ran the society, being taught in every element of man's society. The priest was the doctor, the lawyer, the engineer, the butcher, whatever it was. It is the priest that conducted that training. That's why it took 40 years to train a priest. In these papyri, we come now to a thing that's going to get me in a lot of trouble. But trouble is all I ever had. The ancient priesthood was in charge of two aspects that govern the concept of feeling, to thinking, and so forth. One was astrological that dealt, and one was astronomical. Astronomy dealt with the complex measure of distances, one body to the next, in terms of, spherical dimension, the stars, the moon, the sun, and so forth. Astrology, dealt with the physical aspect of the movement of these heavenly bodies. Let me be more specific. Astronomically, the moon and the sun, for example, are in different locations at different time of the month and different time of the year. The measurements and placing of these bodies, stars, etc., is our astronomical calculation, therefore astronomy. On the other hand, for example, when the moon is farthest away from the sun, like now, the temperature, because the sun does not have the heat, the moon does not get the heat, and the earth, for example, does not get the heat because it's farther away, therefore it gets cooler until it gets colder and cold. That's the astrological effect. Thus we have astrology. It has nothing at all to do with whether a child was born in January and was making love to Mary in June. Got nothing at all to do. That is Greek mental illness. The Greeks are the one that introduced that. Not one single Egyptian or Nile Valley African had anything at all to do with that madness. I know I told you I'm going to make a lot of enemies. Because a lot of you ain't going out of your house tomorrow unless you consult Mary Jane and her sloppy chart. You're not going to marry nobody unless you're not even going to bed with anybody without consulting the chart. I saw a sister the other day who was with a man and they had the proper chart. It was perfect. I saw again and she had 2 pounds of steak in her eye. And I said, what happened? That son of a bitch hit me in my eye. And he was a perfect relation. They had taken the chart and had it done by Slaxy Maxi and everybody else. Now, she couldn't go with me because we were born in the wrong signs. You see what I mean? But I've never hit a woman yet. I hit my little daughter when they were small and so up to a certain age. I whacked them with a little buffani and so forth, and I'd give them a little whack, but I ain't hit my mama. You know what I mean? I don't deal with that. So she was better off with me, even though I was the wrong sign. But that again, no, all of that, and then we come in religion and terms of numbers in the church, calling out the hymn number so and so and all this kind of thing, and go to Egypt and bring you holy water. What are you talking about, holy water? The man takes some palm, burn the palm, make ashes, throw it in the water, strain the water out, sell you the damn water and ashes. I could do some good in the water and sell you and for cheaper than that. And it has the same effect. As a matter of fact, it smells sweeter. But no, you're mad with me because it got you to believe, to keep you enslaved. You talk about being enslaved. This is to enslave you because you believe that this water, which you catch in the cup, more than the water in your tap, is going to do some magical thing for you. It hasn't done for him. If it did, he wasn't going to sell you any of it. He going to keep it all for himself. And this is what we mean. We got to understand that these factors, the comparative analysis between whether it's Judaism, Islam, Christianity, or the ancient religion, Egyptians or Nubians or folk practice, what are these things for? They are for your betterment. They are supposed to be designed for your betterment. Whenever they do not act in your behalf, it is time for you to release them and go to something else that would assist you in your betterment. That should be what religion is for. Religion should not be something to tie you down, to hamstrap you to the point where you cannot better yourself. There's another major factor. Whenever the religion is going to make you and you and you and you and you and me fight each other, whenever religion, I got a daughter, is a Jehovah's Witness, I go to anything she gave, including visit Jehovah's Witness many a time. My son-in-law the other day was going to be a lecturer or whatever they call him. He's going to preach. He'll be now a preaching man. And he was going to move up there. My daughter invited me. I went. I congratulate him and wish him well. Yet they have never come to any lecture I gave. They cannot come. They're not permitted to come to a lecture I gave. It's worse than that. They don't recognize any of my relationship. It is not good because it wasn't sanctioned by some guy in Brooklyn. But when religion is going to make children and parents and other loved ones part because of their obligation, then is that helping you? Oh no, I can't see that. I can't see why it make a difference if a black sister comes up, an African sister, and she is Jewish, she is Muslim, she is Christian, she is Buddhist. It don't make a difference to me. That got nothing to do with I'm going to marry her or go with her. If she is a good woman, that is the criteria, not how she prays. And then does it make a difference if I got a Magen David or I got a crescent or I got a cross, but I didn't support my child? And I'm making oodles and noodles of money, but I got all these things, and I tell you, man, I'm a Christian. I'm a Muslim, brother. I follow Malcolm. And what big deal? And you don't give your son, your daughter a piece of bone. No, it is about time that we understand that most of us are Christians because the slave master was a Christian. Most of us are Muslim because the Arab slave master was a Muslim. Most of us are members of the Church of England because we're from the Caribbean under the British colony. Or we are French because we were born in New Orleans or other parts of Louisiana or Guadeloupe or so forth. We had nothing to do with being rational about it. Have nothing to do with our interests. Because if it were our interest in terms of Christianity, then we would not belong to the church because we don't see a black Jesus in the Bible. There's so many things in which we have to look in all of them. There are the differences, we can see them. There is no doubt where religion started. It didn't start. If we go back in Islam doesn't have an existence, the Arab doesn't have an existence without an African woman. It is out of an African woman that Ishmael came. Ishmael came out of Hagar's womb in Egypt. And Egypt is in northeast Africa. And it is Africa that saved Abraham and all his sons from starving to death when they were running from the famine, the hunger, and the Africans opened their doors and fed them naked, hungry dogs. It is Africa when Mary was running all over the place from Herod. It is Africa that opened her womb again and told Mary to come and bring the little scruffy little boy and give him a place to stay. No, when you get in the pulpit, when you get in your church, your synagogue, and you must remember that Africa saved your God so that you can talk about it. Everybody hitting the African woman. But that same African woman has wet nurse, surrogate mothers, all of them. They seem to forget. So Africa has nothing to beg anybody for, to be sorry about. Africa doesn't have to worry about any Holocaust because Africa has suffered umpteen Holocausts. Africa, when she set her moral values to give it to the United States of America so that they could make a lopsided scale instead of a proper balanced scale and call it justice. Stupid Tom up there, that's Clarence, Yale boy. Believing that he had something special, only realizing he was black when them cracker senators come down on him. Then he hollow, I'm black. That's the way they treat black people. And Anita, no value. 5 years, 10 years after the man touched you behind, if he did, you're going to remember it's then he touched it? Because now he's going for a job, and the job you got, he gave it to you, all the job, and you're going to cut each other's throat because you went to Yale and became de-Africanized? Yes, and all of them are religious. Everyone, including the senators. One was puffed with alcohol. They call him a Kennedy. And he's sitting in judgment. You see what I mean? And the lawyers were religious. The whole bunch of these people, most of them were lawyers. They had studied jurisprudence. All the philosophical concept that goes with the legislative branch of the legal arm of the government and the justice system. But they had not looked at the symbols of justice. They had not examined the 42 admonitions to Goddess Ma'at, who had no concept of what they were. It was understandable. If you got 42 laws and you were only using 10, you got to be making some heavy mistake. If you got a Bible and 18 books are missing from it, how can you expect God to hear you and you're not using 18 of the books that you need to reach God with? I think that you Protestants better go back and check your Bible. And if God gave you a a Bible. It is the words of God passed down to God's secret service to you. Then how could you go to a conference and decide which one you're going to take out because this one is ineffable, which one you're going to leave in because you believe and it is God that gives you all? Either stop jiving somebody or come straight. And if you're going to listen, if God give these books, who God give the second power to take out some of them, and how accidentally they took out those, the book of genealogy, which dealt with us. Why is it in the Protopavilion they said that Mary's mother had her by immaculate conception, and she had Jesus by immaculate conception, no sex in the family for 3 generations? And yet you, a mother, sit down and read this. Why don't you ask yourself, what's so bad with me having sex? When you had sex, did the paper from City Hall stop the penis from bursting your hymen? The hymen got busted whether you had a paper from City Hall or not. It's the same way the hymen burst, with the paper from City Hall or without the paper from City Hall. And Mary didn't have any paper from City Hall. Let us stop and not only argue about the differences. We know the differences. We know the chronology. That's not the point. The point is, how can we use Judaism, Christianity, Islam, the Nile Valley, religiosity, to benefit ourselves as a common people? What difference does it make if I walk through the door with a sister who is of the Nile Valley religion, of Judaism, of Christianity, of Islam, and each said they're hungry? Do I feel one and not the others? Isn't the hunger of one hurting the same place of the hunger of the other? Yes. Won't both of them get gas if they don't get something to eat? Does it matter how she pray? If the 4 of them go to pray and call a respective God or whatever, use the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, would praying bring a sandwich out of the sky kosher or not? Or $1 from my pocket, a hand from my helping them and say, come, let's go to the restaurant, let me feed you, without asking you what kind of drawers you're wearing? And that's the test. But I know you're not going to do nothing about it by the time you leave, but I'm just telling you so you got no excuse for the next time. And that's, to me, the criteria of what we're talking as I wind this down. I think there could be no doubt if all of us in here, if all of us make it a common pledge to ourselves to get a copy of the Book of the Dead, get a copy of the Torah, you call it, not written, don't get a so-called Old Testament. Go to a Jewish bookstop and get a Torah translated from Hebrew into English. It's different than the one the Christian said is the Old Testament. They're sticking Jesus in there. The Jews ain't got no Jesus. Yeah. No, let's jive. You want a Jewish book by Jews. You want a Christian book by Christians. You want a Muslim book by Muslims. Yeah. They're not honest when talking about the other one. You understand? Jews don't honestly talk about Christians. Christians don't honestly talk about Jews, by Muslims. And Muslims don't talk honestly about the other religion either. Nobody talks good about the other person's religion. No fisherman tell you that the store up the street got better fish or as good fish as him. Everybody fish stink but his. So now let's get a copy of the Yoruba Bible, a copy of Unkulunku, that's the religion, the god of the Abazulu. get a copy of Ngai. That's the god of the Kikuyu. Get a copy of the book of Vudum. Vudum is the god of voodoo. Get you know, these are all African. Get a copy of Olodumare, Olorum, the Yoruba religion. Read all of them. Read every one of them. If something is good in either one, apply it. Either one. And that's where I stand. People want me to be Muslim or to be Christian or to be Jewish or to be that. No. I am whichever I could read in whatever that is going to help me in my concept of belief. It means then I will come to the mosque with you. I will come to the synagogue with you. I will come to the church, to the temple with you. And if I will sing your songs because it's a belief. Neither of us knows the answer. Otherwise we won't go in the first place. We're going because we do not know. And the issue is not in what came first, but what is going to help either one of us. Because we need each other to get out of this paper bag. Because we are squabbling about who prays to the east or the west, we can't even get out of a wet paper bag. You see, everybody converting the other one. We waste so much money trying to convert the next guy. We waste so much money over putting a dead man in the grave. The family is hungry, little children to support grandchildren, and we're spending $15,000 to put a piece of dead meat in the ground. And got people crying, and the minister coming trying to see how much he can get you Christ so you could join his church and tell you all kind of lie. Well, I know God wants. What the hell he know about God wants? What if he drop dead at the same moment? He don't know you can drop dead, but he gonna tell you what God wants. He don't know a damn thing of what nobody wants. He don't know what he wants himself. And this is what I'm talking about in terms, and that's why I got a bad name. I'm controversial because I'm saying to African people, help yourself. Don't let anybody run nothing down on you. Help each other. And this is lastly before the question and answer period. I was asked, what do I worship? Yes, I worship the black woman, the African woman. I have no problem when I say it. I will say it anywhere, anytime, any place. I know where heaven is. I don't go out and look in the clouds, see if I see a plane passing by, going to heaven. I know where it is. 73 years ago, I came out of heaven. I was there for 10 months. My mother and father mated someplace. My mother became impregnated by my father. And I went down, fertilized into her fallopian tube, somersaulted all the way down into the womb. There I was nourished by the placenta. The umbilical cord, the line of life, became my tether. She did whatever she had to do with the illness and different sicknesses and sometimes feeling good or whatever, with the nourishment and so forth, and I came forward. If that isn't justification for me to worship a woman, each day when she lived, each time when the 31st of December came, I knelt in front of this woman, pushed my head to her womb as the culture of my custom. She put her hand on my head and she told me about all the bad things I did, slapped me in my head and They cuffed me up, and when she got mad about the things I did that year, until it come to the last one, then she started to talk about the good things I did. That was the best part. Am I not to worship that woman? Then I left her and went to the arm of another woman, because I need now to go to heaven. I came from it, I should go to it. And I was told I could not go to the heaven from whence I came. But now I went to another woman. My mother had already prepared me to understand that this is not a bitch, a dog. I was going to the home of my mother, to heaven, and that the woman was going to give me of her body. The highest honor she could bestow on me was for me to use of her body. And my mother had already told me, if you cannot use it with the kind of respect, if you cannot be seen with her in daylight, do not be seen with her at night. My mother had already told me. So then I had to deal with it with sacredness. It was something to be sacred. And in order to be sacred, I had to worship it. I don't see how you can worship an abstract thing, and that which is comforting you. When you sleep, she feeds you, she cleans you, she washes, she cooks your, she fixes your house, and she protects you when you're sleeping. Then why can't you worship her? I say, when we learn to worship our women, that day is your beginning of freedom from slavery and freedom from captivity.
Before Dr. Ben take any questions, when you came in, there were some raffle tickets that were raffling off for $1. Dr. Ben's African Origin of Major Western Religions, African Mother of Western Civilization, and Black Men of the Nile. Depending on how many people are interested in still participating in that raffle, as of this moment right now, we will either take, well, let me ask it this way. Is anyone interested in participating in that raffle? There's people who have the raffle tickets with them now. They can pass it to them. Keep your hand up. So what we'll do is make sure you get the ticket. Anyone has a question? Yeah. Gentleman here? Yes.
Are you familiar with the work of Zechariah Sitchin?
Zechariah who?
Zechariah Sitchin?
No, I do not.
Next, stand up, please. Yes.
Some years ago, I heard a tape, Dr. Ben. You mentioned that Yahshua Christos was born in a cave in Ethiopia, and that the Council of Nicaea, the ministers changed the story around and placed it in Bethlehem. Can you tell me a source of your information?
You could get the proceedings of the Conference of Nicaea. The Conference of Nicaea is in 14 volumes, both in Latin and in English. And the arguments between the 219 bishops are placed there. And that's the best source because it's the proceedings at the Conference of Nicaea. And as I said, it's in 14 volumes.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Sister here, and then your sister.
Yes, Dr. Ben, I took a college class in Bible studies, and the scholars of biblical books say that they have no records and there's no archaeological findings of a man named Moses having ever lived?
That is true. There is no record in any place in Egypt of a Moses, no record of a Daniel, no record of a prime minister of Egypt by the name of Potiphar.
Sister here.
Dr. Ben, can you tell me if there's been any further studies on the genealogy of the pharaohs? I remember reading something about you stating that they were from Lucia and from
There were pharaohs of Egypt from many places, and then at a point there were pharaohs of Egypt from outside Egypt. For example, from the first dynasty, and that's what we call the king pharaoh. When Nama defeated King Nama defeated King Scorpion. From that time, the king of the United Land, United Egypt, was called Pharaoh. At certain time, they didn't call him king. Now, from that time to the last king of Egypt, which was not even a king, it was a queen. So from Nama until the last monarch, which was Cleopatra the seventh, the daughter of Ptolemy the 12th. You see what I did there last? You can't just say Cleopatra. You got to say which one, because there were 7 Cleopatra and 15 Ptolemies. And the one that people most speak about is Cleopatra the 7th, the daughter of Ptolemy the 12th. Now, from the first dynasty to the end of the 12th dynasty, you have nothing but African pharaohs. Pharaohs who came from what was it's called then Waset. The Greeks had come and changed that to Thebes. Today the Arabs call it Luxor. Then you have from different parts along the Nile and even in Thanis and so forth. In the 12th, the destruction of the 13th dynasty was by a foreign people called the Hyksos. People coming from Asia around the tributary, a little rivulet that connected to the Tigris and Euphrates. They also called themselves shepherd kings. They came with a leader by the name of Salatis. They penetrated Egypt from the coast, the Great Sea, which was now called the Mediterranean, all the way before in the north to a place called Abyss, where they established their capital. That's still in the delta. It is not even as far south as modern-day Cairo. They were repulsed in the 17th dynasty by a southern pharaoh by the name, a southern king by the name of Amus, A-H-M-U-S-C. Amus was killed during that battle and was succeeded by his son Thutmose first. Thutmose first was replaced by his daughter, who took the throne from her little brother, who was supposed to be legally it, but she was a woman where he was a boy. She became the only woman king in the world. She gave herself the title Queen King, wore a beard, put on a false beard like a man, put on men's clothing. Her name was Makare Hatshepsut. Her son finished the pushing out of these people, these foreign people, otherwise the Hyksos, and by this time we are in the 18th dynastic period. Another group of people came in and ruled, and that was the Ethiopians and the Nubians. But before they came in to rule, there was still another foreign group, and that was a group of people called the Assyrians. Have nothing to do with Syria. The leader of the Assyrian was a man called Ashurbanipal. Ashurbanipal took over in 714 before the Common Era, the 25th dynasty. They ruled and was pushed out by the Africans again, Nubian kings, and they remained into power until a third group of foreigners also from Asia came. That would be the Persians under the leadership of Cambyses, who was serving Darius I. That would bring us to 525 before the Common Era. The first group of Europeans are to come as conquerors. That would be the Greeks under the leadership of Alexander II, the son of Philadelphus. And that would be in 332. The Greeks, or Macedonian Greeks, ruled until the coming of Augustus the Caesar, and that would be 47, while on the throne was Cleopatra VII, the daughter of Ptolemy the 12th, who called himself the new Osiris. And so ended pharaonic rule. So you had all kinds of people. By the way, the Jews who claimed that they were ruled by the Egyptians that mistreat them, that's a lie, because the time when they came in, the Hyksos was ruling. And when they're supposed to have left, the Hyksos had just lose the left. So that if they were there, they were collaborators anyhow. And were kicked out at a particular time. But there's no mention of such in any Egyptian writing or any other writing of the nations around the area.
This person here, this gentleman here, yes.
Yes, I read in the newspaper last week that I read the editor of the paper answered one of the persons who asked a question. The question was, were the Egyptians white? And this editor, of course a white editor, said, yes, the Egyptians were never black, and they will never be classed as black. They are black. They're white. Would you please verify that? I think the Egyptians are black.
Well, I just went down, and obviously the editor didn't know what I've just stated. They can't say nothing else without knowing the facts, because they have said so that long. You know, I was at the second floor of the museum in Cairo, standing up there, two statues of Tutankhamun facing each other. They face east and west. You enter the Tutankhamun exhibit through these two statues, life-size. They are jet black. They can't get blacker than that. But a guide was there, and they had a group of people from the religious belt, and they had all the little bags showing that they had just come from Israel. They came from the States. While the guide was speaking, one of the ladies said, "Look how black he was. Was he black?" And the guide said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, No, you must have misunderstood me. "Was he black?" And the guy said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "I refuse to accept that." And the guy said, "Okay, go along with your ignorance." You know, I got a book I'm doing now. On the second floor, there is a note by Gaston Maspero. And he was speaking about Mahepa. Mahepa is one of the jet black picture in the Book of the Dead, because in the Book of the Dead, the mummies are generally shown as white. If it is a god or the person is resurrected, it's shown as green, new life, and red. So Maspero could not deal with Mahepa being black. So he said, in dealing with it, the mummy which he saw obviously was about 20 years of age and a relative to Queen Thoya. Thoya is the mother of Ramesses II and wife of Setaiwan. And he said, he was Negroid, but not actually Negro. Now, you know, I guess they will say that, let's take, for instance, let's take an obvious thing. Queen Nefertari, not Nefertiti. Nefertari was the queen of Nubia who married Ramesses II, the queen of, the king of and pharaoh of Egypt. I wonder what that editor will call their children. In America, have you got 1/1 to the trillionth power, to the X factor minus, and square the differential of that. You got black blood. Look, this system is so racist that you, right in here, you got Merentar Ramesses' son out there, killing his enemy, and you see the enemies in 4 different colors. The only color you don't see out there is black, white. Now, the European told us all kind of things. He tells us, number one, he tells us that white is not a color, then how the hell we see them? Anything he tells us, we're supposed to accept. When I was going to school, they tell me there were 5 continents. Australia was the biggest island. Now they got 7 continents, and Australia is one of them. They tell me the lion was the king of the jungle. I went to the jungle looking for a lion and couldn't find a single lion. And when I asked the people, how come I can't find a lion, they said, it don't live in the jungle, it live in the prairie. The lion is a prairie animal. His main food is the giraffe. The person, are you foolish? How could a giraffe run in a jungle? The next piece of food is, the next piece of food is the donkey in the pajama. They call him zebra. And zebra, everything the lion eats is on the prairie. It's a prairie animal. He will die 24 hours in the jungle, lion dead. And next thing, if he's the king in the jungle, you never seen a lion messing with a rhinoceros, and he's king. You never seen a lion messing with a elephant, and he's king. I can think of a lot of things that lion don't mess with. So there are a lot of things that they decide if it's right or wrong. The point is, I don't pay those jackasses. No. Do you think that I pay this museum? Here we are in a museum. Do you think I give much thought to what they say here? I'm in an awkward position, Colin.
I would like to know when, in the historians, we're going to move beyond 6,000 cycles, like 2000 AD and 4000 BC. I want to know when we're going to move out of that.
I don't think anyone is going to move this. You can't move things when you don't have power. Powerless people do powerless things. You see, we are bound in certain things. We're going to pray. We're not going to kill nobody who kill us. These are the things that we are, until we have changed our quote-unquote modus operandi, until we get to the point that we could kill, until we get to the point that we could say, to hell with what you're saying, I don't believe it. until we could say to the white man, your culture is not something I'm going to deal with. Until we could say to the designers, until our woman could say, I'm not going to let you pull my dress up to my behind. We have to be able to say that styles, that's this, that all them stupidness don't govern me. We have to, we can't say we're going to be an African people, yet do everything that they tell us do. And until that time, we're not going to change anything. Yes.
Yes, Dr. Ben, I want you to describe a scene that I saw in the book of Dead maybe about 7 years ago. In this scene, I understood everything but two parts of it. It's called a siren grammar. And the scribe knew, who understand, comes from a generation of 6 priests, is begging his wife in the underground. And I'm sorry, in the underworld.
Yeah.
She's been dead. She preceded him in death and she has a mirror in her hand.
Yeah.
His heart is weighed on the scale of Me'at, and he has passed that judgment. Saul is recording the scene, writing it down. And after that, he kneels down, and his head turns white. This machine in front of him also seems to be on fire. That's the only part I can't really understand.
Well, number one, of course you know you're dealing with theosophy, belief system. Number one, as they continue, I guess you saw that in the papyrus of Annie. You will notice that as they go closer to the judgment, to meet Osiris, the body becomes whiter, the clothing become whiter. It lightens, from the bottom up, it gets less brown until it gets white, because white is the color of the dead scene. When they get to Osiris, he's going to have a green face because it's resurrection, new life. Now, symbolism is the point, but what you're talking about is if he passed, when he passed, the weighing of the heart against the feather of truth. There's a heart, a symbolic heart, and there's a feather. That Amut, the animal that's going to devour the heart. When he passes, it doesn't devour the heart. Therefore, since he now has his heart, he has blood to continue. If he had not passed, Amut would devour the heart. So they show symbolically, they have to show a different coloration. Just for, it would, in other words, it's part of it is symbolic, and they use color to demonstrate so that you can see the transformation of things going on. Because after that, after that, he's going to meet Ma'at. He has to still meet Ma'at. The weighing of the heart is with Ma'at.
Now, why is white tutu carrying a mirror? And in this scene, above Osiris...
Because she's seen her double, her image.
Okay. Well, now, above Osiris, it has the upside down effect with the wings, with the balance. I couldn't understand these.
That's Kepra.
Okay.
Kepra.
Sister over here.
Dr. Ben, could you enlighten me about the story of Queen of Sheba and Solomon, and the second part is Haile Selassie, the last heir or the last member of the Kedah and Solomon's family or bloodline?
Wow. Well, first of all, let me put it in proper perspective. Makeda was not the queen of Sheba. She was the queen of Aksum, or Ethiopia, and the empress of Sheba. She was queen of Ethiopia and conquered Sheba. Sheba is on the Arabian coast, Ethiopia is on the African coast. When a queen conquer another queen or kings, she become an empress. So she was the empire. Sheba had become a part of the empire. I just want to clear that up. Now, the question with her and Solomon relates to Songs of Solomon, chapter 1. The most specific part of that is verses 1 to whatever it is till you get to chapter 2. This myth that when Makeda went up to Solomon. In this communication that went on between them, there came a time when she mated with Solomon. He was wise and she took all the money he had, a little bit of change, because her bodyguard was bigger than his whole army, and he was so wise, and she went to him with a little goat pasture country called Israel, as against this monstrous empire that she had. Having that, went and took his money, came back allegedly pregnant with a son called Abna Hakim, which Westerners call Menelik I. But the proper name in the Ethiopian language is Abna Hakim. When he came at an age, he went back to the father. The father supposed to have the gold ring. This is in the Keber Nagets. The Keber Nagets is Ethiopian Chronicles of the King. Supposed to have been kept from the time of Makeda until Haile Selassie, Makorin. Abna Hakim was sent back to his father when he came 12 years with a ring. The father was supposed to give him some ark, send him back. His mother then abdicated the throne for her son. Ethiopia changed from the indigenous religion and adopted the Hebrew religion. So Ethiopia then became a Hebrew state. Back and forth, the Hebrew rule until all the way down to Chief Radik, one of the Hebrew, what quote unquote Falasharu rulers of Ethiopia. The point is that Selassie Makonnen is his name, Ras Makonnen, his father was the cousin to Emperor Menelik II, Abna Hakim II, famous Menelik of the Battle of Adawa. Selassie was only a third cousin to Menelik the emperor, had no right to the throne in terms of succession. There were about 8 people before him to take that throne. But Menelik died on his bed, and under Ethiopian law, the emperor could name any member of the royal family. It doesn't have to be his son or anything like that. His daughter Zadito was supposed to be the heir and succession in terms of order. He bypassed her Menelik and named his grandson Zadito's child. His name Lidjasu, Lidj, one name Yasu. Selassie and Abuna Johannes. Abuna is the head of the church, the Coptic church at the time. They changed the name now to the Ethiopian National Church. He and Abuna Johannes conspired with the French and the British to overthrow Yasu, because Yasu wanted to unify Ethiopia. Ethiopia was fighting the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims, was killing out each other every day. And Yasu wanted to stop that and go back, because he wanted to do what his grandfather had done, organized to overthrow the Europeans out of the place, like his father his grandfather tried to do at the Battle of Adawa in 1896. They overthrow Yasu, put him in a dungeon, but he escaped. The British and the French went out to find Yasu. They did, and turned him back to Selassie, who was supposed to be taking care after Selassie and Abuna had poisoned his mother, Zadita. When they got him back in their hand, they put him in a dungeon and put a 24-hour guard on him, and he died there in his feast. Selassie then took over, he and Abuna Johannes, and in 1900, that's to 1924, In 1927, they usurped the throne, naming Selassie as the emperor. It is nothing special about Selassie because she, Zadita, Makeda, was the one that brought to the throne the name her son the Lion of Judah. All emperors of Ethiopia from that time carried the name Lion of Judah. It was a big deal. He just carried the name that others were carrying. Now as to legitimacy, he had no legitimacy. He took the throne by killing both Zadita and her son, the Jasu. As a matter of fact, that's why I am in the West. My father was working for the Jasu in Brazil as the consul general. In 1924, we were sent there. Shortly after we went there is when the first overthrow came. And then if anybody that was called back home working for the Jasu was hanged. My father didn't want to be a dead patriot. And so he went back to Puerto Rico with my mother. That's my mother's country, through Cuba. And then we stood in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands for a number of years before I went back to Ethiopia. In 1959, working for the United Nations, when I went to Ethiopia, he locked me up. The United Nations had to get me out as a dangerous Ethiopian because you can't get rid of your Ethiopian citizenship. Once you're born there, you are for the rest of your life under Ethiopian law. But the United Nations got me out. My father wanted to get back. My father died 102 years old. At 96, he petitioned, 96 and blind. He petitioned Ethiopia for return, and Selassie turned him down. Said he was a dangerous enemy to the state. So, isn't somebody I got anything good to say about?
I just want to say first, Dr. Ben, I'd like to thank you for helping me from reading help me to realize and become free. And I know that you know what I mean. The question has to be, in terms of the Gnostics, do we have any more information on the Gnostics, and could you elaborate on some of the Gnostics?
I think they will get the best reading about the Gnostic with regards to the argument between the Gnostic and Tertullian, the Gnostic and Cyprian, and the Gnostic and Augustine, the three African intellectuals of the Roman Church. Tertullian would be the best because Tertullian took the argument of the people. As you know, the reason that Tertullian was not made bishop by the church, although he introduced Latin to the church, was because he constantly took the side of the laboring people. Whereas Augustine and Cyprian were the intellectual type. Augustine was of the two because it is funny that Augustine would have taken that position when he was a prostitute. Augustine lived in a whole house with a prostitute whose body he sold, and she got his only child by the name of Abuqueta. You see, people don't go into the history. What made Augustine argue with the Gnostic about morality and so forth was because at 72, Augustine denounced sex after hell, after that kind of life that he had, and at 72 I could understand. And then he wrote the Holy City of God. He wrote the Confessions. That's what he confessed, the Confession. And the gem of it was when he wrote about if a person or persons had sex and the intent was not procreation, it would have been sinful. That means if your wife got the menopause and you could barely get an erection, and both of you decide to have sex, it's not to gain no baby, sure. That'd be a hell of an illusion on your part. But he said you're not supposed to touch each other. It put me in mind of some men, they get to be 60 years and they say, well, I give up sex. Just suddenly, I give up. Well, that's them. You're supposed to, stop. Just stop. He went more than 60. But the Gnostic argument reached its full point with the argument with Augustine primarily. I think that Augustine's works, if you take his work and compare it with the Gnostics, you get the opposite, a good opposite position. Because to Cyprian, you can't understand. He didn't do too much writing anyhow. He's very kind of an uppity. Cyprian was an uppity man with his nose in the air. At least Augustine wrote. He had some value of the working man. But these guys were unreal moralists. Tertullian was the man that you need to read an agnostic, and labor and different things like that.
Brother over here.
Dr. Ben, I have an up-to-date question about a situation that happened last year. I heard about it on the news. I want to know if you can tell me anything about the Kenyans, when they had that coup over there, the Jews.
What country?
I think it was Kenya or Ethiopia. Kenya. They had a coup over there, and about 200 and something thousand black Jews had exodus to Israel. And there was some situation about they were supposed to be recircumcised or something like that.
No, I know about the recircumcision because I fought that, and I had to be in a committee with Hadassah fighting it. It is still, the circumcision is still a requirement by the Jews, but the Ethiopian Jews ignore those damn fools. The Hasidim, the Hasidim demand that the Ethiopian Jews be recircumcised. But the Ethiopian Jews don't have to pay no attention because Ethiopian Jews are not with the Hasidim. They are Sephardic. They are with the Eastern Jews, Jews of Yemen, Jews of India, and so forth. These Jews are called Sephardic. The Hasidim are called Ashkenazi, the European Jews. So they say it, unless the Ethiopian Jew want to be a fool and join one of them synagogues, they don't have to accept that. But the fact is still there that the Hasidim does not recognize the Ethiopian Jews as Jews because they said they have to do the circumcision. It is these damn fools going to decide that they're in charge of Judaism. And they decide what is kosher and what isn't kosher.
Well, how can you be recircumcised? That's not what
You recircumcised, but there's somebody taking a pin and sticking your penis and drawing some blood.
This brother here.
Yeah.
Earlier you spoke about how we made religions and categorized the Egyptian reality, and you told the sister that Moses was fictitious.
It's what?
Moses did not exist, or there's no
In Egypt.
In Egypt, in the writings of Egypt. And I would like to know, how does that stand with the Mason religions, and how does that apply to the 400-year-old prophecy?
But a prophecy is a statement that somebody made. I mean, I could make a prophecy right now. If somebody will follow it and you won't. So that's what it was. A prophecy is only as good as the people who are going to follow it. It means nothing for the people who aren't going to follow it. And the Torah is only good for those who are going to follow it. For instance, there is no record at all anywhere in Egypt or anywhere else from Egypt, in no papyrus and in no pyramid and no stela and no obelisk, anything you would talk of, no record at all anywhere in Egypt or any material belonging to Egypt with any Moses mentioned. There is no record of Joseph. There is no record of Abraham. These are mythological and allegorical characters. Every religion got characters of allegory. Every religion. They only value the Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Yes, sir.
It's because this brother here, this brother back there.
Good evening, Dr. Ben. Dr. Ben, my question is, how do you feel about the work and writing of Gerald Massey? Genesis 1 and 2.
Massey was a renowned atheist. And Massey used the Egyptian writings and praised it, not that he supported it, but he used it to fight Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and he used to show that this, of course he used the facts, and the correct facts, but he didn't particularly was proud of it. He used it because it benefited him to prove atheism. So I don't have no respect for Matthew, but thank heavens he did write something to prove his point as an atheist.
This brother back there, then this brother here, this brother, and that's the stand up.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Ben. The question I would like to ask is in terms of our development as students. One of the mistakes that I see that we make, specifically in terms of me as I was developing, is that we tend to get stuck in two different areas. The first is the present time. Those of us who say we got to do something now, we got to do it and ignore history, and those of us who get stuck in the history of ancient times where we want to be kings and queens again, but not deal with reality. How do we strike a balance?
Well, I think a man has to live in the present, but he must refer to the past so that he doesn't make errors. That he don't reinvent the wheel. For instance, a man who spent all his time reading but forget to support his wife and child, or his woman and child, is a jackass. You have to deal with your realism. The realism: you must eat, you must be housed, and you must clothe yourself. You must equally see to it that those connected with you get those kind of benefits. That's your realism. Your realism is also, in order to make it possible that you can do those things, you must know what the past is, what you're dealing with, both past and future, past and present, and to be able to direct to some degree what the future will be. So then a man must look at all things. He can't just look at one and ignore the other. I can't tell you no better than that, because I will have to have specific cases. But in generality, a man must look at the past, he must look at the present, so that he can predict or determine to some extent the future.
I'd like to know if you have any evidence of any historical corroboration of the life of Jesus outside of the Bible.
No, there is no archaeological corroboration of Jesus. There's 16 crucified saviors. The Jesus story is one of 16. For instance, there's a book by Percy Graves that gives you all of the 16 in one book. You don't have to buy 16 different books. It's called the 16 Crucified Saviors. Jesus is the last of the 16. There is a book, a book by Thomas W. Dones, Bible myths and their parallels in other religions, and he will show you this mythological figure, Jesus, how many societies had a similar figure. There's a book by Annie Besant called Christianity Before Jesus. There's equally one of the same name by John G. Jackson, showing you Christianity as practiced. What the things that are practiced that are now called Christianity, how many people had practiced them before the European figure. The Herculaneum worship of Isis shows you the transition from the Isis, Horus, Osiris myth to the Christian myth. If you see the early practice of the Ethiopians in terms of a Jesus figure born in a cave in Ethiopia, you can look, you know that there was a crucified savior among the Zapotecs in Mexico when it was called Azteca, before the Spaniards took it over. A crucified savior in Mexico. So the crucified savior thing is nothing new. Jesus is the last of the crucified story. And the virgin birth and all that thing. The last. I think you need to read Anacalypsis by Sir Godfrey Higgins. That's a 2-volume work. When all the Jesuses were called black, were black, in Europe and everywhere else. That's Godfrey Higgins. So, I mean, and read Man and His Gods by Homer W. Smith, written by, published by Doubleday and Company, and also The Golden Bow by Sir James Fraser. That's 13 volumes. Yeah.
Yes, can you tell me the origin of the term Asiatic black man? Is that an accurate term?
Asiatic black man, that term come from Elijah Muhammad. But people forget that the same Elijah Muhammad operated at 128th Street on 8th Avenue as Motmot. And then he didn't say that. He operated as a member of the Moorish Science when he was in Detroit. Then he went to Chicago, is when he come up with the Farad thing, which nobody else have seen but himself. He disappeared just like he came. There's nothing wrong with it. He got his little, I don't blame him. Elijah had his program, and he put in his program, he put in thing. I think I got to be mad to think of a mad scientist named Yaakov who was trying to make people and make the white man instead. You know, let me put you. I don't have to be as mentally ill as a white man to not like him. I don't have to adopt the Protocols of Zion, that stupid book by Henry Ford, because Van Rothschild refused to loan Henry Ford money to mass produce his cars. They turned him down, and he got so and wrote this book about the Jews. I don't have to go as stupid as Henry Ford was. I got enough genuine things that Jews wrote and Jews did, including the role in the slave trade, the white Jews, to deal with them on the basis that I don't have to be just as stupid as them in order to look like a jackass and then disqualify myself. No. That's why I said, they could call me controversial, but the point is to shake my facts.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to, I was about the Jakub theory, but you cleared that up. I'd like to know, you followed the history resentment. I wonder towards that the white people have towards us. Was that an example of the resentment maybe that we had towards each other, or is that a learned resentment with women? Is that a learned resentment that we had towards each other, or whether this is a resentment that the white man has created by the fact of their existence, the way they were created, and how were they created?
It has nothing to do with creation. If it had to do with creation, then if I mate with a white woman, I should get a monkey or a jackass. But if I wait with a white woman and she's fertile and I'm fertile, we're going to get a human being. My problem with white people isn't that they weren't made or from a human being or human stock and all that kind of nonsense. That is not my problem. My problem is social-political. I am not going to marry a white woman under no way thing. But it has nothing to do with the fact that she's inferior to me. No, I'm not that stupid. If she was inferior, then she couldn't get a child if we mate. I ain't going to mate with her to prove it because I started to see it done already. But it doesn't go to that. I am not going to see a little white kid come here hungry and don't give him some food in peacetime. Bob blow his brains out tomorrow. If there's a war on, you know what I mean? If there's a war on, I kill all of them. Even the dead one I'll kill. You see? But then there's a war. But there's nothing inferior about white people, and this is nonsense. Because if they say stupidness, mine is socio-political. They don't know to behave. And that is a cultural thing that developed properly, as Professor Clark said, that Europe had nothing to eat, digging in the ice is hell of a thing when you got to dig in the ice for one little fish. And you got a family to feed. And then you go against people that got vegetation all over the place, lying down on a tree, get up, eat a fruit, lay down on the fruit. You know what I mean? You got to understand. But as to the European being inferior and the this and that, that's nonsense. Don't engage in nonsense. Don't be as stupid as the guy who's attacking you. You got to be intelligent enough to ignore his stupidity and deal. That's why the editor answered him. The editors are stuck now. They had been saying for the umpteenth thing, all kind of things. Now the facts are here. They can't, you notice all the time they condemn Jeffrey, they have not said what he said wrong. None. Our religion is a tradition. And our religion are ancestral. Jesus is dead, isn't he? He's an ancestor. You see, we use semantics to please ourselves and forgetting that other people do something. An ancestor is anyone that's dead, who we revere. Jesus is dead, Moses is dead, Abraham is dead. And all these characters that I named, people worship or revere them. And why can't Africans of any group, whether it be in Egypt or in Central Africa, revere their past tradition? Don't we go to the church and have communion? Isn't that tradition? Don't we have a cannibal service in church? Eat. This is my body. Drink. This is my blood. Isn't that a cannibalistic service? It gets worse. Look at the transition. Wash me in your blood, O Lord, and I shall be whiter than snow. Whiter than snow. Now, it is a damn shame. Black as I am, wash me in red blood, and my blackness will turn white. Now that somebody don't know chemistry, there's some damn fool need to learn chemistry. You know where you going to put black and red together and it turn white? Even the devil can't do that. Yes, sir.
Do you agree with Dr. Francis Cresswellsing and Dr. Bennett Jeffries that white people are albino mutants? And if they are, what is the date of their...
I'm not a paleontologist, and I must state my ignorance on that subject. I respect Dr. Welsing and Eddie Fuller, Billy Fuller, and Dr. Welsing's father, all of them, and Dr. Richard King. I've read their works. I do not have the expertise. Is it yes or good? You need somebody who is a paleontologist or deals with an area to say whether or not their work is right or wrong. I think that in certain works I can only say it's interesting because I don't have the capacity to say it's good or bad.
Well, why do they not have any pigmentation?
I told you, I am not a paleontologist. And I don't know. There are a lot of things I don't know.
Dr. Ben, isn't it true that the Roman Caesars were educated in Egypt and the Greek philosophers in Sudan?
What, the Roman what?
The Roman Caesars.
No, Caesar, the word Caesar means king. That's all it means. The Caesar, the king. Julius, Caesar, Julius the king. All right. No, I don't know of one king that came to Egypt for his education. I know Romans that came to Egypt for his education, but not necessarily any of the Caesars, including the 3 African Caesars, Honorius, Septimus Severus, and Caracalla. Now, I know it was the second part.
Greek philosophy.
Most of the Greek philosophers, except the pre-Socratian philosophers from before Socrates all the way to Thales, came to Egypt. Pythagoras and others even wrote extensively about the gifts of goblets, silver goblets that they made. Many of them wrote about the pain they had to suffer with being of the age they were when they came to take the circumcision to start the classes. Plato and Aristotle themselves, Plato spending about 11 years creating the concept of a creator. Socrates was the creation of Plato. There is no contemporary of Socrates, and Eusebius and other chronologists stated that Socrates is a problem because there's no contemporary for him. So yes, most of them came. I think the best person on that subject to read would be Dr. James, George G.M. James, my elder colleague. His works on this, especially Stolen Legacy.
My question is in reference to the account of Moses. You refer to that as
The what?
The account of Moses.
The account of Moses.
And yeah, and you refer to that as a myth. And my question is in 2 parts. If that is a myth, what purpose do myths serve in our lives today?
Pacification.
Okay, and 2, do you feel that we are creating myths for our children, for
I don't know what myth.
to pass on to our children?
Well, I don't know what you're referring to say it's a myth.
Well,